Hi everyone, I'm Joe. Today it's time for me to do a book review of Equal Rights written by Terry Pratchett. This was first published in 1987. This is the third Discworld novel and it is the first in the Witches character subsets. For reference, the Discworld books are not an ongoing sequential series where there are a sequel followed by a sequel. They're really based around certain character subsets and a few that are not based around any one particular character set. And the Witches are a particular favourite character set of mine. So, first of all, the plot of the novel is a wizard at the very start of the book dies. He is at the time in the Ramtops area. The Ramtops in the Discworld is very much known for its hilly and harsh terrain. It is basically Terry Pratchett taking a very sarcastic look at mostly Wales with little bits of Scotland thrown in as well, with the hills and the mountains and the little valleys, and even the way characters speak is blatantly inspired by certain Welsh stereotypes, and Terry Pratchett plays on that to remarkable way. Anyway, this wizard dies. He is making his way to a little village, and he, upon his death, or just as he's about to die, I should say, he gives his staff to a newborn baby who he knows is going to be a wizard. However, one thing that the wizard can foresee, because wizards do know when they are about to die, the thing that he doesn't see, however, is this new little baby is not quite what he thought they were going to be, because the baby is not a male. It is a female baby. So a female wizard. This is going to present problems. Quite big problems, because, as you can tell by the title, Equal Rights, wizardry in the Discworld up until this point has been very much an entirely male dominated profession. There are no female wizards until now. So this baby, who is called Escarina Smith, or Esk for short, grows up to a young child. She's 11 or 12 by the time the main plot of the book gets started, and her village witch in the area is Granny Weatherwax. Now, Granny Weatherwax is the first of the witches that you ever get to see, and she is my favourite character almost in the entire Discworld series, because her personality and just sheer force of will is phenomenal to see, and she's just a really good character. Even though she doesn't like being a good character, she'd almost prefer to be a bad character in a way, but she's not that way inclined. And Esk eventually starts to learn witchcraft from Granny Weatherwax. However, this doesn't work out too well, because she's learning witchcraft from Granny Weatherwax. Witchcraft is not quite the same as wizardry. It uses a very different system, and frankly, it's not really compatible. So Granny Weatherwax realises that she can't really teach him anything else, so she takes upon herself to take Esk on a big trip over to Ankh-Morpork, which is one of the big cities on the disc, which is essentially the Discworld equivalent of London, England, which if you read any other Discworld books, you will be familiar with Ankh-Morpork, because it is London but twisted and taken with a wry humour and a sarcastic look that is fantastic to see. They go to Ankh-Morpork, where there is Unseen University. Unseen University is the wizard university of that particular city. There are others in the world, however. They go to Unseen University, and the idea is she'll go there with Esk, and then it will become the wizard's problem rather than Granny Weatherwax's to teach Esk about magic and, in theory, be a wizard. However, there's one problem. As I've said, there has never been a female wizard before, And this is problematic, especially when several wizards point out to Esk and Granny that Esk can't go to the university because she's female. That's not a good thing to say to Granny Weatherwax. Granny Weatherwax is a force of nature. She's a force of personality. She relies very much on her own willpower and her own sort of thought processes. She doesn't bow to anyone. She's her own person. She's entirely independent, incredibly fiercely independent, and as a result, people saying that Esk can't be something just because that she's female, yeah, that's a bad place to be. You don't want to annoy Granny Weatherwax, at least not for long, because she will make you wish you hadn't, let's say. And basically the plot goes from there, with Esk being in Morkborg and events unfolding around her, in theory, attempting to learn to become a wizard. So, now I'll talk about a little more about the characters. So, I've already talked about Esk, who is a young child at the start of the novel. She is older than her years. Later, however, mentally, she has learned far more in the world from just being around, out in the nature and such, than city people often are. So she's a bit sort of quite worldly wise, although she's not city wise. And that contrast between she's used to the world, but she's a little bit naive when it comes to the big city, which obviously I think Morkborg is an interesting contrast, and one that I think really works well with her character. And that also comes into play with Granny Weatherwax, because Granny Weatherwax is a country witch. Now, she has gone through cities before, or slightly medium-sized cities before, but she's totally not used to big cities either. But Granny Weatherwax will not, under any circumstances, let on that, for instance, that the large city is actually out of her, purview and out of her sort of experience, and she doesn't really know what to expect, and can't really help as much as she makes out she can. But her personality, her strength of willpower, and that's something to note with Granny Weatherwax throughout this book, and indeed other books that feature her. Granny Weatherwax is a character that is very much based around her willpower and just her sheer dogged determination to get things done. It doesn't matter whether she thinks she can or she can't. If she decides that something needs to be done, she'll do it, period. I like this viewpoint. To be honest, it's something that I've tried to almost do for myself as well. So that's an important aspect of her personality, and it really does play into the novel, especially with Esk being slightly more carefree and Granny being obviously a little bit more stricter, or at least on the surface she appears stricter. That combination, combined with certain other characters like the Arch-Chancellor of the Unseen University, who's the head of the university. He's what appears to be a sort of stodgy, sort of male patriarchal figure. Actually, he's not quite as bad as he seems. Then there is another young character called Simon, who is potentially a wizard as well. Obviously, like Esk, he needs training, but of course he is a male, so he gets preferential treatment, which Esk does not get. So again, that plays into the plot and character building extremely well. And frankly, the characters in this are fantastic. Now, as far as the world is concerned, this is obviously, again, on the Discworld. For reference, Discworld is basically a large round disc which sits and rotates on the back of 4 giant elephants, and those elephants stand on the back of a giant world turtle. Sounds strange, and frankly it is, but it's also absolutely brilliant, and Pratchett does make references to this and little sort of quips about this himself in like novels. But the disc works, and the locations in it are fantastic. Essentially, Pratchett, with his world building in this book and every other book, he essentially takes real world locations, in this case mostly Wales and then London, and twists them at a slightly strange angle, looks at them and investigates them with humour and sarcasm in mind. But they also are surprisingly realistic to what you'd imagine, but just taken to a next level. they're basically amplified upon stereotypes. As a result, they are really well described, but also really amusing and brilliant locations for the novel to take place. And now finally I'll talk about the ideas or the themes that the book talks about. The first of these is, you can tell from the title, Equal Rights, is related to the fact that this is gender equality, because of course equal rights refers to the rights of magic and the rights of people towards each other. So this is very much, magic is a patriarchy system, male dominated, and Weatherwax are basically trying to break into a system that is entirely male. Now this presents problems and a lot of humour, and it questions the way we think of patriarchies and indeed sort of government and controlling systems in our own world, because that is the other system that this book focuses on, is the establishment, because a lot of governmental and ruling systems in our world at the moment are still heavily male dominated. Obviously things have greatly improved as time goes on, and obviously they will hopefully continue to improve further, but they're still heavily dominated by generally fairly ignorant men, for the most part, who have egos bigger than the country that they happen to live in, often trying to be, better than they are. And Weatherwax and Esk is a system of showing how to break into this system and what it means in a really interesting and amusing way, but also with true meaning behind it. This is not just a trivial little, oh yes, equal rights, it's amusing and that's it. This does investigate gender equality and indeed establishment in a really interesting manner, which I'm not going to talk about any more now, because I think it's one of these situations where I think it's really powerful for the reader to explore this themselves, but Pratchett explores that in fantastic detail and in a way that I absolutely love, and frankly I would heavily recommend to everybody. So overall, in summary, this is a fantastically well written book with humour and truly introspective moments that really make you think about the world that we live in, as well as the world that the characters live in. The characters themselves are brilliantly well written. They have both humour to them and some incredibly depth to them, of personality and forces of will, as I've mentioned. And obviously the world building is phenomenal. I mean, this is the Discworld, so this is a flat earth type situation, or flat disc type situation. So again, there's humour to be had there, and there's humour all the way through the disc world in every section. Finding the lighter moments and finding the serious moments is always an interesting situation to be in, and it's always just a fun situation to try and find when he's being serious and when he's not being serious. It's a brilliant situation to be in, and overall I would heavily recommend this novel because it frankly has everything going for it and virtually no real downsides, other than admittedly there are a few moments where there are certain world building elements and certain elements that where characters just feel a bit overly lightly done, but it is a fairly thin and short novel for its time. As a result, certain aspects get slightly glossed over, but only very slightly. For the most part you barely notice it, and there's only a few moments where you think, that might benefit from, maybe a little bit of more depth to it and a bit more expansion upon the subject. But it's really very minor, and to be honest, considering the incredible quality of the rest of the book, I personally have always forgiven it for that and always will. So overall, a very highly recommended fantasy novel from a very well known and very highly respected fantasy author. And that said, that is it for this review. So if you have read this or you would like to read this, then please leave a comment and we can have a talk about it. If you've read any other Discworld novels and you want to talk about them, then again, please leave a comment. I will be reviewing every single Discworld novel in the upcoming future, so there will be whole series of Terry Pratchett related reviews to come. And that said, that is it for this review. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.